Meeting. I'm the Mayor, Adrian Gregson, and the public meeting and members of the public and press are permitted to report on the proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photographing, making an audio making an audio recording and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note this meeting is recorded and streamed live. These recordings are published on the relevant meeting page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed or recorded and for any footage to be broadcast or published. If the alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All emergency escape routes are clearly signed. Once you have left the building, the assembly point is in the High Street opposite the Guildhall. Members and other speakers are reminded to use their microphone when speaking. I'm going to start the evening as usual with a few words from our City Orator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a strange world we create. On the one hand, ruled by clocks and precision, on the other by moon and tides. Ramadan Mubarak, Lenten blessings, moon-guided observances. Clocks go forward, scientific argument. Whichever we cling to, systems, traditions, or change in the name of progress, it creeps up on you. No matter how ready you were for the clocks changing, admit it. It took you, your body, and your routine by surprise. Of course, some changes become the new normal, something about which we simply say, that's how things are around here. We've been living with daylight saving and British summertime for over a century, since the First World War, yet not everyone is happy. Only 11 years ago, a bill went before Parliament to tinker with the practice. And only 11 years ago, another change took place in the life of our city, which, if we are not careful, could become a new normal. Worcester Food Bank opened for business in June 2012. 10 years later, it fed 11,360 people, an increase in demand over the previous year of 23%. And over 1 in 3 of those were children. Did I say, if we're not careful, then this too will become how things are around here? Careful, not enough, I'm afraid. If we're not angry, if we're not disgusted, if we're not ashamed, what will it take for this to change? Compassion, leadership, breaking the mould, a fruitful Lent, Ramadan Kareem.
Thank you, Ian. For those of you who haven't realised, unfortunately, Ian will not be with us at the annual council meeting, so I'll intend to thank him publicly here for his help and assistance and advice and support and words throughout the year. At the annual meeting, I'll say something behind his back. We move on to apologies for absence. I'm aware of 3.
Mr. Mayor, I also note that Councillor Lewing is absent. Do you have apologies?
Okay. So if you haven't spotted that, Councillor Stephen, Councillor Shafaz-Ditter and Councillor Bissett. Any declarations of interest? No, can't say any. Very good. We'll move on to the minutes then. Minutes of the meeting on the 21st of February. We'll take those as being accepted. Very good. Thank you very much. that one. And move on to Mayor's communications. First of all, just want to let you know that the petitioner who presented the petition on the last meeting about the toilet facilities for lorry drivers, obviously you'll see there's a notice of motion on that matter for the agenda, so that will pick up those issues. I was very pleased to be able to attend the unveiling of a new memorial to the Worcestershire Regiment in Gallivelt over the weekend. We went there with members of Worcestershire Ambassadors and also the Mercian Regiment who'd helped fund the memorial. Councillor Agar came with me as the champion for the Armed Forces Covenant. And there were a number of people there from the Regimental Association and others, and we met with the Belgian Burgermeester during the day on the Friday, and then on the Friday evening we laid a wreath at the Menin Gate, which was quite a privilege. And so I just wanted to thank those people who were able to come and support, and the messages of support that we've had while we were away, and also to our Belgian hosts. We suffered, it was ironic that we were there for the First World War and we had our clocks changed as well, of course. And if you're already an hour ahead, that made it even harder to work out what train to catch home. We did frequent, it has to be said, one or two local hostelries to sample the Belgian beer, but I did not include them in my list for the Mayor's Ale Trail, so I still have around about 40 to pick up before the annual council. I'll let you know how that goes, and we'll alert councillors to plans to be in your vicinity should you wish to join me. I'd also like to thank the Worcester Concert Brass. We had a successful evening for raising money for the Mayor's charities a few weeks ago, which was attended and seemed to be fully appreciated and enjoyed by members of the Ukrainian population who we were able to invite. And finally, we have sent out letters to various charities and organisations about the Coronation Big Lunch. We've been, as you know, we've been asked to organise the event on the Sunday, the 7th of May, as part of the general celebrations. We've targeted local community groups and asked them to nominate people to come forward. So if you know of people in your area or organisations you're in, please feel free to investigate the form and send in nominations. There will be refreshments at the end of the meeting in the Mayor's Parlour, as usual, but we will be also taking a break at 7:40, as you have been alerted to in advance. This is the last meeting of the civic year, and so we know of some councillors who will not be coming back in the new civic year. There may be others, of course, to which my sympathies, but for those who've made the voluntary decision, then I think it's this is the time when we say thank you and wish them well. And we on the list tonight are all from the same political group, starting with Mark Bayliss, of course, who has been on the council since 2002 in St John's and subsequently Arboretum and Bedwardine wards, and has held positions of responsibility for the last 12 years as a cabinet member, as deputy leader, as leader, and finally as joint leader. Nida Hassan has been a councillor for 4 years and created history by becoming the first Muslim woman to take a seat on our council for Warndon Parish North. Steve Mackay, whose name I see most days in the parlour, was mayor, deputy mayor and mayor in 2017 and has been representing Baton Hall since 2014. His main theme that year was to promote the role volunteers play in the city, a very important role for which he jumped out of a plane. And although he did lose his seat on one occasion, he took the plunge to come back in 2019 and has in the past chaired the Income Generation Committee. And finally, Andy Stafford, who's our councillor for Claims, from May 15, again re-elected in 2019 and has been the Vice Chair of the Environment Committee and then Chair of Environment Committee since May 2021. So thank you to all of those for serving your local communities. And I think it's appropriate to offer a joint leader an opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You've stolen some of my lunch on Mark's speech, but I'm not going to be doing the speeches on all four of the members of my group because that would have taken a lot of research. So other people will be doing that work, but I am going to say farewell to Mark. One correction, you were right, he has served in 3 different wards, been elected on 5 occasions. He was first elected in 2001 though. And then during his... How many? 2002, I wrote one. You wrote 2001 in your notes to me. So, Councillor Bayliss, obviously not very good at numbers as an economist,
Sorry,
but never mind.
Councillor, excuse me.
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor.
Point of order. Has Councillor Bayliss written his own speech for you to read?
No, Councillor Bayliss has given me notes. That's what you do when you delegate. During his 21 years in the council, he's held a number of high-profile appointments, not least of which is being the leader on 2 separate occasions for over 5 years. He's also led the opposition, been Cabinet Member for Economy and Planning, and he's also chaired scrutiny. There are a few more experienced councillors in this chamber, and I would wager that none know the Constitution better than Mark. With a career spanning more than 2 decades, it is unsurprising that he has a list of significant achievements that we should be rightly proud of. And these include the new pool for the city. Mark led on the campaign against much opposition, but won the day, and the city and its residents have been the beneficiaries of his determination and sound planning. Mark, do you want to come and do this? Well, be quite quiet then. Mark worked closely with Councillor Louis Stephen, and I wish him a speedy recovery, as I know he's not feeling very well, and was instrumental in delivering an all-party city plan, which still the city work with today. They also pioneered the introduction of the committee system, which again has seen some great success for the city. As the leader, he's led on both the Towns Fund, High Street Fund and Cultural Development bids, which has seen the city benefit from nearly £50 million of government investment. His leadership wasn't always smooth sailing though, and he led the city through the COVID crisis and all of the challenges that brought. During all of this, he has had the foresight and empathy to reintroduce the honorary alderman title to pay tribute to those councillors who have served the city with distinction. Having handed the leadership over at the end of the last year, he did so leaving the council with significantly more reserves than when he became leader. I'm not sure I'll be able to say the same. Having outlined all that Mark has done for the city, what sets him apart from many is his great work he has done both nationally and regionally. Nationally, he has represented the district councils on the Executive and District Council network for 4 years. Regionally, he has chaired the West Midlands Council Leaders Group for the last 3 years and represented the South Worcestershire District Councils on the Worcestershire Let. While carrying out all of these extra roles, Mark has also been the Local Government Association Conservative peer, not the Lord type, although this may come, and he's conducted peer reviews across the country. Mark's achievements and commitment to the city have been substantial, and his leaving will be a great loss to the Conservative group, the council and the city. I wish him all the best in his new role as the Deputy Police Crime Commissioner and his continued role as a Cabinet Member at the County Council. We say thank you for all you've done for Worcester, Mark, and wish you the best for the future.
Are we going to go through everybody first and then go to responses? That might be easier, I think. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Denham.
The other speakers, we've got Councillor Andy Roberts is going to speak, Mr. Mayor, on one of them. We've got Councillor Stephen Hodgson will speak to one of our members, and we've got Councillor James Stanley will speak as well, if that helps you.
Enormously.
Okay, does this work? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking about Steve Mackay, who was first on the council, as you said, in 2014, and has also been a parish councillor and is presently the county councillor for the St Peter's division. Steve's standards and personality have been shaped by his experience and those around him. His wife, Alison, I know, has been a great help and guide to him, and his time as a detective sergeant in Avon and Somerset must have had a bearing where he dealt with children's issues, particularly safeguarding. Now, I'm not going to go through a long list of things he achieved. That would rather miss the point. He did help with the Riverside Walk and the pool, and in St Peter's during COVID arranged a system where people could call for help, and 600 people did that. But Steve's a bit more than that. Some councillors are driven by ambition, some by fixed party political agenda. There's nothing wrong with any of that, but Steve doesn't fit that model. He places, and has always placed, the community and the individual above political dogma, though he's loyal to his friends and allies, and he's genuine with his help and resources. Steve's focus still to an extent is on the needs of children, especially those children who faced the greatest challenges. I know he's particularly worried about the liberalisation of so-called recreational drugs, and why would he not be? He's seen firsthand the effect of drugs and what they can have on children and families. I'd like to share something which I think perhaps paints a little picture of Steve. Is when, not far north of us, an authority and its police force looked the other way when young girls were being exploited. Steve said to me, "You know what you call a child prostitute? It's a child." And that struck me because, in a way, you can bring that to where we are now. And what do you call an asylum-seeking child? It is a child. And I think that speaks to Steve's decency and commitment. And there's a lesson in there for all of us. I asked former Councillor Roger Knight for your view, and I wish I hadn't, to be honest, because he summed everything up in 2 sentences. He said, "Steve's someone to be trusted, a model councillor, setting standards for others to follow and to live up to." So, Mr Mayor, I won't usurp your position to thank on behalf of the city, which I think you've already done, but on behalf of the group of which I'm a part, I'd like to thank Steve for all that he's done, but more than that, I would like to thank him for the way he's done it. He will be much missed. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to pay tribute to my fellow ward councillor, Councillor Nida Hassan, who became, as you said, the first Muslim female councillor for Worcester, which was a great honour. I can remember first meeting of when she first stood here, and one of the first things we did was we went to the AstroTurf on Brecon Avenue and took a picture of it to use for a campaigning thing and said, "We'll get this AstroTurf fixed and we'll get this sorted out." And I'm delighted to say in just under 2 weeks' time, that will be reopened as a fantastic new multi-games play area. Nida's background, she has a master's degree in planning, and that was quite useful early on in terms of becoming a member of the planning committee, and she was also previously a member of the audit and governance committee. In this municipal year, she's been on the environment committee and the hot market charity. Now Nida has also has quite an interesting family history as well. She comes from quite a distinguished family in Pakistan, And she has two uncles on both her maternal and parental side who have served in the Pakistani government. And in fact, I think she told me partly responsible for the removal of one of Worcester's finest sons, Imran Khan, from the government there. She also has Italian ancestry as well, and that brings in two of the great things that she brought around during election campaigns, and that was the food. Wonderful South Asian food and also delicious Italian snacks as well. So Nida, you will be missed, and good luck in your new job, which I understand you are a senior project manager for the Royal Parks in Greenwich. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, thank you. When a councillor leaves the council, either through a decision to step down or because the electorate has decided to move on, it's invariably a moment for reflection. When that councillor's journey has been so intertwined with one's own, that reflection is perhaps even more enhanced. Andy Stafford, as you have said, was elected to the council on May the 7th, 2015, so beginning a part of his life that will conclude at the elections this coming May. In my judgment, despite a relatively not lengthy period on the council, very few of us will depart from this building with a record they can feel more proud of than Andy is entitled to feel of his. During those 8 years representing Claims, Andy knew only one way to go about his work: with total commitment. He and I put some steps in during those days, and I will leave it to you to decide which one of us was more assiduous in carrying that on. In recent years, in his role as Chair and Vice Chair of the Environment Committee, Andy has overseen some amazing work: measures to tackle the Gull Menace, the transformation of the city bin stock, and indeed much else. Moreover, he displayed an ability to work in a collegiate way with George Squires, Tom Collins, and latterly with Karen Lewing. That, frankly, I didn't think he had in him, but there you go, you live and learn. In conclusion, Andy, if we fail to tempt you back into the fray at any time in the future, enjoy the next chapter. And the only thing I can say is the next round is on you. Thank you.
Councillor Denham.
Thank you very much. As the last council of the civic year, it is an opportunity to look back and to say farewell to those councillors who are choosing to retire. There possibly is an art in choosing when to retire, because there will also be some councillors who intend to be back here in May, although voters may have other ideas. And the electorate being able to change their minds is the bedrock of democracy, although it can be tough to be on the receiving end of that. I want to thank those councillors leaving us for their years of service to Worcester City. As councillors, we may be motivated by different aspirations or different political philosophy, but it requires time and effort from every one of us in order to be elected as an individual effort and team effort. It requires dedication and effort to come out on cold, dark nights, to come to the council chamber and make the case for policy changes or new projects, to decide how much council tax should be or whether to spend money on trees or street cleaning. Thank you for your public service. Thank you for caring about Worcester. Thank you for wanting to shape the life of our city. And good luck in the afterlife. That's to say, life after being a Worcester City Councillor.
Anybody else got anything to say? Oh, okay, thank you very much. I would then offer the opportunity for those retiring councillors to say a few short words, if you like. Should we start in reverse order? Councillor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Took me a bit by surprise, but first, I'd like to thank James for his kind words. It's been a great honour and a privilege to serve the residents of Claims and Worcester over the last 8 years, and I'll always remain grateful to those that voted for me and put their trust in me. I've sat on a number of committees during my time here. However, the last 4 years on Environment Committee, 2 as Vice Chair and 2 as Chair, have been my personal highlight. And hopefully members that have sat on the Environment Committee over the last 4 years can agree that it has been a good advert for the committee system. I'd like to thank members and officers that have supported our achievements in keeping Worcester clean and green. In particular, we should be proud of our vibrant city centre, our green flag parks, as well as our leadership on net zero and environmental sustainability. And finally, I'd just like to wish you all the very best for the future, especially with the significant challenges that lie ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't made any notes, sorry. What I would say is that it's been an honour and a privilege to be on this council for these years. Worked with some great people, worked with officers who have been always so helpful. I'd like to say thank you to Andy for his kind words and Lynn for hers as well. Other than that, there's not a lot more really to say, Mr. Mayor, other than it has been good, it has been worthwhile. I think it's been worthwhile. I'd encourage anybody to look to joining the council if they thought they were that way inclined at all, put themselves up to the electorate. And with that, thank you and good night.
Hassan.
Thank the officers who have been of great help and my lovely colleagues for their support and guidance and sharing their knowledge. It was a privilege to be on the council and I wish everybody the best in the future.
Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll do it the old way, old-fashioned way and stand if that's all right. I'd like to start by thanking you, Chris and Lynn, for the kind words, as this is my I've had a little add up, and I think this is my 106th and final meeting of the full council. I've loved being a member of this authority, the roles that I've played. I've loved being part of the history of this organisation and of this city. I don't know if I've told people before, but I've always felt of the City Council is a bit like a family. We have our arguments. We have our favourites, we have our tantrums, and we have our reconciliations. And I have loved being part of that. The City Council is special to me because it's the only organisation, it's the only one that's singly focused on the city. It is the real place shaper in Worcester. In 2002, the managing director at the time sat me down and with the other newbies and said, "We're a district council." He said, "I don't know how long we'll be around for, you know, it might not be very long." And 21 years later, here we are, and I hope that you serve for at least another 21 years. The council is so important to shaping and guiding the future of this city. I hope it never gets rolled into some amorphous, bigger organisation. I'm pleased to have played my part in a number of significant initiatives and hoped to have played a part in moving the city forward. Some of those have been mentioned. The swimming pool, I particularly take pride in. There's many people who played a part in that, but in terms of you know, the genesis of the idea and galvanising people about the crumbling Sansom Walk and the need to really change that, I'm glad to have played my part in that. I'm also particularly proud of the work we did to break the logjam of flip-flops in this council of leadership 1 year and out the next and in the next, and you know, the people of Worcester can never quite make their mind up which party they want to run the council. And what we did in coming up with a committee system, with a joint city plan, sharing the mayoralty, are all things that I think have given greater stability to this authority and allowed us to plan. If I can give you one bit of advice, I hope that you will keep working together. Having sat on this side and that side, there's more that unites us than divides us. It's true. And the longer you stay here, the more you find that actually that is the case. I'm grateful for the opportunities the job has provided. Lunch with the Queen outside in this in the Guildhall, visiting Ghana twice as part of the Commonwealth Local Government Association's trip that was organised by Worcester with Adenta and with Councillor Pat Agar and others, chairing the regional LGA and representing all districts, who I think are an incredibly important part of the local government family at the District Councils Network and the LGA. I want to thank members of all parties and apologise to those whom I might have offended along the way. It was never personal. There are some great people in this authority. All the people on this authority have got the right motivations. There are particularly some in all parties who I'd like to take out on a night and have a chat with at any time. I'd like to thank the people of Worcester for the opportunities to serve, as other colleagues have said, it's been a true honour. And finally, I'd like to thank the fantastic staff at the council who go above and beyond again and again and again on behalf of members, whether that be from the very top all the way through, particularly with members in committee services as well. I've enjoyed working with you all. Thank you so much, and I will enjoy watching where Worcester City goes next.
Thank you, Paul. So we have no public participation, so we will move on to the questions. And the first question is from Councillor Udall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to Councillor Lucy Hodgson. There is need for adult physical activity, especially with myself, and sport in public parks in Worcester, which is not covered by the play strategy currently under consideration. Does she agree popular activities such as basketball and netball could be accommodated within Cripplegate Park with the provision of a mini basketball court or a single basketball loop, which could meet the demands of both adults, older children, and used and enjoyed by individuals and small groups?
Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you for that. Worcester Parks and Open Spaces already provides much opportunity for informal and physical activities and education and sport. With regard to netball, the playing pitch and outdoor sport strategy, published in July 2022, concludes that in fact there is enough outdoor provision, netball provision in Worcester to actually meet current demands. Basketball wasn't included in as one of the 8 key outdoor sports within the playing pitch and outdoor sport strategy, and I'm aware that the provision of a single court was actually lost at Gallivelt Park when the 2 tennis courts was installed. The play strategy consultation, which concluded on the 19th of March, did not exclude physical activities or sport from being commented on. I'm actually aware that some feedback has been received through the consultation in respect of basketball provision in Cripplegate Park and Gallivelt Park, and I know all the comments will be given equal and due consideration. A draft Worcester Play Plan will be presented to the Place and Economic Development Committee in June, along with the consultation feedback received. Officers will also be organising an all-member briefing session on the draft Worcester Play Plan in mid-May, conscious of the importance of this piece of work for every ward member.
Thank you. Councillor Udall, is there a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last Friday, over 1,100 people were at Worcester Arena watching basketball. It's fast becoming Worcester's most popular spectator sport. It could well become a popular participatory sport as well. We have very few places for adults and children to play basketball in our parks. Therefore, will she consider bringing a report to committee to consider, in particular, how we can install free-to-use communal basketball courts or hoops in Cripplegate Park, which is only a few hundred metres away from the home of Worcester Wolves basketball team? And will she accept my challenge to join in a game, Reds versus Blues? No, okay.
Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Richard. I, in fact, scored a basketball hoop, whatever, when I was mayor, actually in Cripplegate Park. So there you are, along with the Worcester Wolves players. So, but joking apart, I think rather than bringing a separate report, I think we can, in June, I think the presentation, the plan Worcester Play strategy will be presented to the Place and Economic Subcommittee, which I think will actually address some of your concerns. I'll play.
Thank you both. Thank you. Thank you, Richard, for not throwing the ball. Okay, so what we're going to do now is have a short break, and we'll have you back at 8 o'clock, please.
I haven't pressed it yet. Planning on speaking tonight.
Right, are we back on? Thank you. So we're going to reconvene then the meeting with question number 2, which is Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to the Joint Leader of the Council, Councillor Mitchell. How many residents of Worcester have applied for a voter ID card or voter authority certificate? And what percentage of those within the city estimated to be without valid photo ID does this constitute?
Thank you for the question. I could be flippant and give you a very succinct answer of 125, 300 to 600, but I won't. I'll put some context behind it. The application for a voter authority certificate is via a national portal. Council officers are not allowed to access that data and can only view details of the number of applicants who are live on the system for 28 days. However, it is estimated that approximately 125 applications have been processed through to completion to date. The government's photographic ID research published in March 2021 found that 98% of people in England and Scotland and Wales held any form of photo ID, falling to 96% of people who held a form of photo ID that felt was still a reasonable likeness. We have about 76,600 registered voters, so 2% would suggest about 1,500 need a VAC, rising to 3,072 if that target was 4%. Therefore, between 4 and 8% of electors who may require a voter authority certificate have applied for one. However, ID will only be needed for those who do not use postal votes, and approximately 1/3 of votes cast at council elections in 2022 were postal votes, and will only be required for those who actually attend polling stations. Taking postal vote and turnout data into account, the 2% figure falls to approximately 300 people who are likely to attend polling stations who would not have appropriate ID, or 600 if the figure was 4%. On this basis, up to 50% of those needing and wanting voter ID have applied for a VAC already. The closing date for applications is 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 25th of April.
Thank you. Is there a supplementary?
There is, yeah, thank you. This council recently passed a motion expressing concern over the wholly unnecessary introduction of photo ID for elections. And the concerns I raised then seems to have been realised. As of this month, only 1% of those estimated to need photo ID had applied nationally. So if we're reaching 50%, we're doing extremely well, and perhaps we should be guiding other local authorities in how to do it properly. And, you know, I'm aware that Councillor Mitchell himself is sending out letters, and I have one here, okay, in reminding voters to bring ID to the polling station. So he is clearly concerned about his own position as a councillor this year. So how confident is he that all those entitled to vote will be able to do so? And what further steps will he be taking to increase the take-up of voter ID cards?
Well, thank you. I'm not sure you can assume that I'm concerned. Maybe I'm just a conscientious councillor, and you, as one of my residents, are fortunate that I would write to every resident personally, giving them additional information. But you can interpret it as you wish. I am always be concerned if anyone doesn't get the chance to vote. However, I am given confidence by the numbers I've just relayed to you that those numbers should be very low. I hope it is 0. But I'm not going to make an estimate of what that number will be. The statistics I said earlier are far more detailed than I could guess at. But I hope the number's 0, Matt. I generally do. And if it's not, I hope it's 1. But that will be 1 too many.
Thank you very much. Right, so we're now going to move on to the rest of the agenda, starting with motions, and the first motion is in the name of Councillor Lauren. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion seeks to raise awareness amongst this council of the lack of facilities for professional drivers for mandatory rest periods, toileting, washing and eating. We all of us rely on these drivers to maintain our supply chain, delivering goods and food to the comfort of our homes whilst overlooking even their basic needs. By the very nature of the job, many drivers tramp, live in their cabs between trips home. My brother and my nephew are HGV drivers, and more recently, my niece has passed her courses to answer the national shortage of HGV drivers. But the job doesn't attract young people, especially females, because of the lack of basic amenities. We know that facilities exist on motorway services, but these are expensive, frequently overcrowded, and often out of order. They provide inadequate security, with curtains frequently being slashed by criminal gangs seeking valuable items to steal, while drivers use facilities or are asleep in the cab, as recently happened to my niece. Often long-haul drivers prefer to spend their rest periods on roads around industrial estates without parking restrictions and close to their next goods stop. These places do not have much in the way of facilities for drivers, leading them to a choice of restricting their food or fluid intake, which is unhealthy for them, or gathering their waste and disposing of it in a makeshift way, which is unhealthy for all of us. I became aware of this because of Warndon Womble's community litter picking group. They came across feces and bottled urine discarded in hedgerows in Wainwright Road, less than a quarter of a mile from food establishment. When asked for comment by Worcester News, the council merely commented that discarding human waste in public areas is illegal, which it is, and the police would be informed. Punishing drivers for not providing facilities for them does not resolve anything long-term and deters people from entering the profession. If not carefully treated, human waste and other body fluids can spread dangerous and infectious diseases such as Hep A, C. difficile, E. coli, rotavirus, and norovirus. When it comes to human waste cleanup, failing to address the issue immediately poses serious health risks to workers in the area, such as Wainwright Road, and local residents who might walk in that area. Inaction is putting the health of the local community at risk. It is time that we recognise that if we want better behaviour from professional drivers, we should deliver them better facilities. This motion calls that Council recognises the petition raised to the Council on the 21st of February 2023 regards the facilities for professional drivers in the city, and in response the Council calls on the Managing Director to write to the County Council to request a strategic review, which should include seeking support and advice from the Road Haulage Association to consider the adequacy of the current provision and suitability for secure rest stops and overnight parking for professional drivers within the county, working with partners to improve the provisions such as in facilities in Worcester City. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that motion seconded? Councillor Rios.
I'm going to formally second that, Mr. Mayor. Please. Mr. Mayor, as someone both in logistics, dealing with over 120 lorry drivers a day on a daily basis, I have a certain degree of sympathy for lorry drivers and their situations. A driver who's tramping receives an industry average of about £25 per night for food and upkeep. Some are reluctant to use this for their overnight facilities. Others will happily pay to secure parking and proper facilities. More importantly, though, we will never be able to stop this practice of lorry drivers parking in industrial estates, and I believe we wouldn't be allowed to legally stop it either. Due to the working time directives and heavily regulated framework in which drivers operate and the way that hours are strictly controlled, drivers have to stop or they face heavy fines, points on their licence, even lengthy bans for failing to adhere to these. And there are a number of people in this room who are in this field who can attest to that. We know the hazards of motorway driving and the amount of accidents that occur. And quite often, Worcester is a safe distance before their official hours are up and they have to park amongst our streets, so they must populate them. I also work on Warndon Business Park, where we encounter the daily problems that this motion talks about. We as a business have spoken to the police and authorities who allegedly say they are unable to enforce the yellow lines on the roads because they are unadopted, a statement we are yet to verify, but the problems are real. They cause obstructions, they leave behind mess, they leave behind privatiser. We know that a solution is needed. However, we must not demonise the drivers, Mr. Mayor. The recent lorry driver crisis showed how poorly the UK has treated lorry drivers over a number of years, to the point they never really have been seen as key professionals keeping our country going. Part of that problem is then arising, meaning that we provide substandard facilities for them, and resources and funding to go with that doesn't materialise. We must treat them with the dignity and respect that they deserve and provide them with the facilities to rest, recuperate, keep us safe and themselves and the streets clean. I happily second this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Hodgson, I believe you've got an amendment.
Yes, I would like to propose amendment to this particular motion. What the amendment is, and I will read it to you. First of all, on the third line down where it says called upon managing director to write to the county council, I want to change that to county council and national highways. Insert that in as well. And then at the end of the motion, I want to change Worcester to Worcestershire and add in a sentence, this council recognises that the constrained boundaries of Worcester City mean such facilities are unsuitable in areas of the city, including the Shire Business Park, which will unwittingly lead to a proliferation of overnight lorry parking in or close to residential areas. Now, if I can have a seconder for that, I will.
Is there a seconder to the amendment?
Yeah. Okay. The reason.
No, sorry. Is there a seconder to the amendment?
Can I have a seconder, please? Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell might have been first. So argue, doesn't matter.
Okay. Okay. And
So can we just make sure everybody's got a copy of that then, please, before you start, Stephen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I've got a number of points basically I want to raise. This is really partly as well due to my professional experience of being in the road haulage industry for 30 odd years. This issue first came apparent a few years ago, and it was raised by one of my fellow city councillors, Alan Beanie, who came across the same problem as well of, dumping of unsavoury litter in the hedges on Wainwright Road and that, and felt that having facilities for the drivers would be a particularly good idea. It then came apparent from official advice that actually this may not actually resolve the problem we want to actually create. And in fact, what it might do is actually result in a proliferation of more overnight lorry parking. What we have to acknowledge is, and I think this is why I'm amending the motion rather than opposing the motion, is because we do know there is a shortage in this country of suitable overnight facilities. We do know in Worcestershire we have 3 motorway service stations at Franklin, Strensham and Hopwood, and they have facilities, but of course drivers have to pay for them, and unfortunately there's some drivers who are either unwilling to pay for them. There's either drivers who are self-employed, operating on very, very tight margins, and therefore don't want to pay that charge because it's going to erode their quite low margins in this particular industry. We do need more lorry parks, and there's some excellent ones in the country. And lorry parks have certain characteristics around them. They need to have WCs, need to have showers, ideally to be able to offer affordable food. A very important aspect is to have security as well for overnight lorry parking as well. I know when I worked for DHL with the Jaguar Land Rover contract, they have parts that come across from Europe, and some of those car parks are very, very valuable, and therefore it's essential that they're actually kept in secure parking in that. Also, I was involved in a company, and we had a third-party load, which involved transporting Bacardi breeders, and it parked on an industrial estate in Northamptonshire, and it was broken into, the curtains were slashed and the Bacardi breezes were stolen. So it's also important as well that such facilities are secure. Unfortunately, putting things on the Shire Business Park is not going to help them in that particular sort of way. Hence the reason why contacting, I think, National Highways and about getting suitable facilities in Worcestershire on our motorways and trunk roads, because as well as our motorways, we've got 3 motorways, the M4, the M55 and the A42, but we've also got the A44, the A38 and the A46, which offer scope. Now, there has been a case this week of actually a vehicle parking overnight in Warnham Villages, near where I live. I saw it first of all when I was coming back from P&R last week at the car transporter, and I saw it again last night, and it was parked on the actual pavement, which is quite clearly illegal. This was a car transporter that had about 8 brand new Tesla cars in it. So I mean, you know, what on earth is something like that doing, parking, you know, in the residential area? What I will say is, regarding the RHA have got a national campaign on this particular subject, and I would say, you know, support the national campaign. Also, the Unite Trade Union, they're also campaigning as well for better facilities for drivers. And again, that is another thing to concur and actually support with as well. I've also as well written to our Member of Parliament, Robin Walker, on this particular matter as well, because I think it is something as well. And actually regarding LGV parking, we actually do have it to a certain extent on Croft Road. I'm aware that the previous administration on this council wanted to discourage that, but to be honest with you, that is actually better than nothing. But I think it is just so important that we understand fully the reasons why the motion as it stands is not suitable, but we do need to do something about it. Hence the reason why I hope the council will accept this amendment, because I think it makes it then into a good proposal, and that we can actually put forward, and as a full council we can all be happy with.
Thank you. Since the amendment proposes a change in target, I should have asked the proposer if she was prepared to accept the amendment or not.
Not, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Can I see if there's any speakers on the amendment, please?
Could I just raise a small point of order, please, Mr. Mayor? The motion distributed by officers says that it leads County Council from the motion and replaces it completely with National Highways. Councillor Hodgson, during his discussion of the amendment, said County Council and National Highways. I'd just like to be clear what the amendment actually is.
Okay. You want to clarify that, Councillor Hodgson?
Yeah, I just received advice actually that after I'd sent it out, that actually National Highways are actually the better authority to actually deal with this particular matter, as they actually deal specifically with this particular subject. And then I was also advised that it's still worth to refer to the county council as well, to refer to both of them. So actually, I think referring to both of them actually helps to strengthen the motion.
Okay. So let's just be clear then, Councillor Hodgson. You wish the managing director to write to the county council and National Highways, both. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. It's going to both. So you understand that now, Karen, as well. So, have we got any speakers on the amendment? Councillors, the councillor has said what he believes in the amendment, and it's up to him. It's up to him.
National Highways and the.
Oh, no, we're not having a debate about it. We're not having a debate about it. We're having a debate about the amendment. Any other speakers on the amendment? Okay, then I would like to move to.
I've got this is incorrect, so it's confusing. What we've been given strikes out county council and says right to national highways. So are
Councillor
we
Roberts,
amending the
Councillor
amendment?
Roberts, I'm going to clarify what we're doing. So, council, please.
So, Mr. Mayor, do I need to now change my seconding? Because I seconded the motion that only had national highways.
That's up to you, Councillor Mitchell. Would you like to remove your seconder?
If we're inserting county council in there, I need to remove my seconding because I don't believe this is a county
Okay,
council.
so we're now in a situation where, which is slightly unusual, that the amendment has been moved and spoken to, and yet it hasn't got a seconder. So is there a seconder for the amendment which says to write to the county council and national highways? No, I'm not waiting any longer. I'm not waiting any longer. There's no seconder to your amendment, Councillor Hodgson. So we will revert to the original motion with no amendment. And are there any speakers on the original motion? Okay, so would you like a right to? I mean, there is nothing to sum up for, since there is no amendment and no other speakers.
You get the opportunity to speak on the motion.
I've just asked if anybody would like to speak on the main motion. Okay.
You'll forgive me for being a little confused, Mr. Mayor. So the amendment, as it should have read, talked about national highways, but that's gone. But that's where the responsibility lies. So now we're basically, I think, sort of saying that City Council are going to pick up the baton for those people from England and abroad who are driving down the M5, and so they can come into Worcester and park in a lorry car park, which no doubt we'll have to pay our council tax for. I mean, personally, if we can have a car park, I'd have a car park in St John's. They're desperate for one. If we have overnight accommodation, I'd have overnight accommodation for our homeless. But if this is where they want to go, that's fine. Can I just? I don't think it's quite an interest, but I am a member of the Warndon Parish Neighbourhood Plan Committee, and we have consulted. And on that, and through that consultation, there's no call for a lorry car park. So I say that because I've got to be clear. I mean, the obvious place for this will go is either Claines or St Peters. On that basis, I think that when we do get to vote on it, it'd be a good idea to have a named vote, so we know those councillors who are amenable to have this facility in their ward.
Okay. Are there any other speakers? No. Okay. I'm now going to go back. To the mover of the motion, because there's now been a speech, and offer you the right of reply again.
Thank you, Mayor. I think what the Andy Roberts is trying to do is just trying to pass the Shires Business Park, which is the particular place where the Wombles found this matter, is used by truck drivers who are tending to use Shires as their pick-up and drop-off. It's not a delightful place that people will choose to drop off from the M5 to. They have a purpose to be there. My son was working in one of those warehouses. You see the trucks starting up as they're coming on shift, and they are going to and from those warehouses and buildings to pick stuff up. That is what they're there for. It's a place of business for them, and it's not an overnight leisure facility. It is just practical for them. They have to stop at the end of their run, and they need to maintain their hours. I think, therefore, it is they will continue to park where it is convenient for them for their pick-up and drop-off. And that is where they need their facilities, and it's for the county council to decide how to address that matter. And we would like the David Blake, the managing director, to write to them and ask them to address this matter. Thank you.
I am a county councillor for this area, so when the councillor says it's a county council responsibility, perhaps you need to take advice but you will be assured, I know, that it's not the county council responsibility, it's National Highways.
So, as I understand it, we've got a motion on the paper which is now ready to vote on, which calls on the managing director to write to the county council to request a strategic review and consider the adequacy of the current provision and suitability of secure rest areas within the county, working with partners to improve the provision of such facilities in Worcester. Okay, we all happy with that? Good. Now, I was asked... Oh, okay.
Vote, Mr. Mayor.
I think I've got it. It would help if the group could rise and fall, you know, together rather than in bits and pieces. Okay, so we're going to do a name vote. Claire, would you like to conduct?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if you could express when I call your name, either for, against or abstaining. Councillor Agar. For. Councillor Basharat. Councillor Alcott. For. Councillor Alcott. For. Councillor Altaf. Councillor Amos. Councillor Barnes. Councillor Bayliss. Councillor Cleary. Councillor Cockerham. Councillor Cookson. Councillor Cronin. Councillor Denham. Councillor Desara. Councillor Aladita. Councillor Geraghty. Councillor Gregson. Councillor Hassan. Councillor Mrs. Lucy Hodgson. Councillor Stephen Hodgson. Councillor Lamb. Councillor Lawrenson. Councillor Lawrence. For. Councillor Lewing. Councillor McKay. Councillor Mitchell.
Against.
Councillor Norfolk. Councillor Petrosky. Councillor Riaz. Councillor Roberts. Councillor Stafford. Councillor Stanley. Councillor Udall. The motion is carried.
Thank you very much, Claire. We'll now move on to the next motion, Cultural Development Fund Arts Legacy. Councillor Ria.
Mr. Mayor, earlier this month, I was privileged enough to be a guest speaker at the Reimagining Place Symposium, celebrating the completion of the first round of Cultural Development Fund projects. This significant event was held here at Worcester at the Guildhall and opened by yourself. It brought together many policymakers in national and local government and academics, researchers, the creative sector and leading cultural organisations to explore the theme of sustainable inclusive growth through culture. Reimagining Place marked the culmination of 5 trailblazing Cultural Development Fund projects and offered the opportunities to celebrate, share, learning, connect and be inspired by those projects in Grimsby, Plymouth, the Thames Estuary, Wakefield and Worcester. You can imagine the surprise then, Mr. Mayor, and the irony that when we were highlighting the brilliant success of the programme in Worcester, that I discovered that Worcester was to receive no further funding from the Arts Council as it was not deemed a priority place. All the experts and professionals that I met that day commented on the great benefit the programme that has brought this to this city and what a great place Worcester was as a result of it. Let me give you and members some context. Prior to the CDF programme, Worcester was a little city with a limited record in delivering high-profile public arts and festival programmes. Seven Arts and the CDF brought us Light Night, the Rising, Atmosphere for events, the same but different programmes that lit the city and satiated an appetite and hunger that Worcester residents and thousands across the county were waiting for. Not to mention the community arts programme that has brought back the Worcester Carnival, supported the Worcester Music Festival, the Worcester Mela, and Love the Arvo. In 2019, the CDF grant was the largest amount of cultural funding the city has received. It gave the City Council the confidence to apply for further funding, such as the Future High Streets Fund, the Towns Fund. It changed the physical and cultural landscape of the city through new creative industries and workspaces. It made Worcester more ambitious in its cultural thinking. It's put Worcester on the map, and which is now seen as a festival city. It brought in new funding, new national partnerships are in place with Outwars and Light Up in the north. Businesses have financially benefited from the large-scale events as they are put on in the evenings during the week when the city is quiet. To date, the programme has delivered 9 high-quality multi-art form festivals within the city in everyday spaces that have inspired, engaged, challenged, delighted and connected the people of the city. None of the festivals were duplicated existing festivals, and all of them brought an element of risk and challenge. In terms of numbers, it engaged with nearly 159,000 people, employed over 145 artists and arts organisations, presented 280 performances, worked with 488 community participants, and created 19 graduate employment opportunities, as well as engaging with over 126 volunteers. It created a bespoke programme to raise ambition, extend reach, and upskill 4 community festivals, including mentoring, fundraising, community engagement, and marketing. It also brought in over 150,000 of extra funding into the city. Mr. Mayor, members, we have set an expectation in the city because we have delivered so successfully. And credit must go to this council and the officers who realised that ambition all that time ago and voted yes for it. However, all the good work and the legacy we have achieved of the arches, which is still yet to come and to be realised, will be lost if we miss out any further funding opportunities. We have become a destination city regionally, and we cannot let the hopes and dreams of thousands disappear. We may not be a priority city, Mr. Mayor, under central government guidelines. However, we have demonstrated we should be a priority city because we are a benchmark and showcase city and as a great success of the CDF programme. Therefore, I urge members to fully support this motion and to fully support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Denham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too attended the Reimagining Place Symposium in part. It was actually a wonderful achievement to see national bodies and cultural experts coming to Worcester and marvelling at the beauty of the Guildhall Assembly Room. The Cultural Development Fund has been a huge boost to Worcester in many ways. What is the legacy? A new cultural partnership, regeneration of the railway arches, new Worcester-based creative connections, and lots of happy memories. But what if that was the last light night that we've just had? Neither the city or the county councils have the money to find for another Rising Young People's Festival. How will Seven Arts survive with no national funding status now? We have generated enthusiasm, creativity, and expectations, but no longer have the resources to meet those expectations. There may be opportunities to bid for some Arts Council money, but these are competitive bids and with no guarantee of success. The Cultural Development Fund has given voice and identity to some of our communities for the first time. Worcester Mela, Bhangra dancers, cooking and storytelling brought a whole new colour and vibrancy to Worcester Show last year. Some Worcester people witnessed South Asian culture for the first time. And some Worcester people saw prize flower arrangements for the first time. We don't want these events and the Arches festivals to fade into a distant memory. I urge members to support the motion, to lobby our MP and the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities for sustainable funding for these important cultural activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Denham. Are there any speakers? Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor. This city has gone through COVID and the cost of living crisis, and these festivals have actually brought delight to families who maybe wouldn't get out into the city streets. So I think it's really important that we do pass this motion and then look forward to providing buses to get people in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's so pleasing to hear people across the floor congratulating the government for the money they've provided us, which has driven that Arts Council, because it didn't come from the Labour government. They never gave us any of that money. It's come from the Conservative government. We are all disappointed that we're not going to get any more. However, it was always time limited, and these events need to become self-sustaining. But we're very happy to support writing to a letter to lobby for additional funding because we see the value in it. But of course, this money has never come before, so we should be thankful to the Conservative government for what they've given us to upgrade the arches, £3.5 million, etc. So, but yeah, we're happy to support writing a letter and asking for more money.
Thank you for that vote of support. Anybody else?
Chair, thank you. I fully welcome the motion, and I think if we look back at recent track records and bids that the council, the city and the county council have lost because they've not been granted by national government, I think it will be a challenge, but I fully support the motion. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Riaz, have you any response? Thank you. Then we're going to move to a vote. Those in favour of the motion? Those against? Any abstentions? No, okay, that's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Let's hope that we fulfil that unanimosity with activity. River 7, Councillor Petrosky. Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Cochrane.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to second this motion. One of the surprising things to me becoming a city councillor was just how concerned Worcester residents are about dog fouling. I'm sure that all of my fellow members here have had residents contacting them about this, their concern. And you know, can you imagine, if you would for a moment, that this council paid a private company to collect all the dog fouling on our pavements and parks, and that company collected it faithfully and then dumped it in a different ward? I think we all know that we would, our residents would find that unacceptable and disgusting. One of the arguments perhaps against this motion may be that it's a national issue, not a local issue. And I would just like to draw the members' attention to some hyper-local statistics. So the combined sewage overflow outlet at Batten Hall Road had 66 dumps of untreated sewage in 2021, which sounds awful to me. That, you know, obviously equates to more than once a week. But perhaps the statistic that is even more concerning is that during that year, the monitoring of that outlet only covered 47% of the time. So the real figure is likely to be significantly higher. My concern here is that we have a situation where we have a large and powerful corporate body that is putting their profit ahead of the people of Worcester and ahead of the natural environment of Worcester. And I don't think that residents of Worcester would find that acceptable. So if you would excuse the pun, I call on the members of this council to pass the motion.
Thank you. Any speakers? Councillor Udall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fully support this motion, and I do so with the experience of a serious pollution incident which took place in a tributary of the River Severn in Lawn Brook in 2019. When a pollution incident occurred, many local people know who was responsible. 500 local fish in the tributary died, and the brook became virtually killed off, and we've had to fight back for it to recover. And over the years, there's not been a single prosecution as a consequence of that incident. I can only conclude that means that the Environment Agency, who are tasked to protect our waterways, are totally unable to do the job due to funding cuts. They have all the powers available to them, but they have none of the power to actually enforce it. And the actions which are suggested in this notice of motion, to be perfectly honest, are too liberal. I would go a lot further. We need to attack really hard, because fish, wildlife and people are dying as a direct consequence of cuts to the Environment Agency and cuts to enforcement and pollution in our rivers. And we need to take urgent action to reverse that. So I do support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I agree that Severn's a unique asset. In modern environmental terms, they refer to it as a blue highway, and that's just what it is. But sadly, since going right back to the agricultural revolution and the industrial revolution, and particularly the use of agrochemicals during and after the Second World War, have meant that our rivers are now greatly polluted. In fact, only 16% of our rivers nationally are in good condition. Ironically, the Severn's turbidity, that's a sort of clarity, has improved, but that hides a toxic cocktail of nitrates, phosphates, and to some extent untreated sewage. And another factor is over-extraction and global warming, which have caused low levels of water, which has really has contributed to the collapse of the biodiversity. If I can bore you just for a second, in the 1970s, if you'd gone to the River Team in May and looked at the water, you would have saw thousands of smolt, that's immature salmon, drifting down to the sea. If you go this year, you won't see any. It's catastrophic what's happened. So, but upgrading the Victorian sewage infrastructure and switching to more sustainable and eco-friendly farming practice might seem like a quicker fix than tackling global warming, but it's going to be difficult enough. And I don't think there is a quick fix. I share with you, I'm a member of the Conservative Environment Network, and we share the fears that have been expressed today, but we're not opposed to something. We're not opposed, for instance, for business being part of the solution. And we certainly don't belittle the efforts of others. We've built up a rivers priority list, which has been refined by a group of MPs and now forms Changing Course, a manifesto for water. And I'll just go through this. I think it might be useful when we talk to it. The manifesto talks about using fines imposed on water companies to tackle environmental problems. It talks about linking executive pay to environmental performance, helping farmers to improve water quality, clear labelling of so-called unflushable items, reforming planning rules, creating a private market for developers to fund river catchment restoration, and the designation of bathing sites. But I have to say, I think the swimming in rivers is a middle-class twee bit of nonsense. The idea that it's good to swim and get E. coli from cow poo or Veals disease from rat urine, I just can't see it. I learned to swim in the river and I don't recommend it. I really don't. The best thing we did in this city council, I say all of us, is to provide a decent swimming pool so young people don't have to learn to swim in the river. And it's not a good idea. Now, it's put to me that we ought to amend this motion because I was going to say, not a bit of nonsense, but there's a bit of, bit of a political overtone that's being used to leave. But I don't think it's necessary. I mean, this is going to Robin Walker et al. And they'll see the politics, but behind it, behind the politics, Robin Walker is one of the people who signed up to the Changing Course manifesto. So I'd say, let's send him the letter. He'll enjoy responding. I just hope he doesn't get distracted by some of the stuff. But basically, the River Severn is such a treasure to us that we must do everything we can to preserve its well-being. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Olcott.
Thank you. Yep, obviously the Liberal Democrats have been doing quite a lot of work around this, and we've been kind of flagging this for a while. And just looking at some of the statistics nationally, obviously water companies in England and Wales, I think they made profits of over 2.8 billion last year, and top water company bosses have taken home over £30 million in bonuses all the time while our rivers are being damaged and polluted. And we're calling for a sewage tax on water companies to force them to reinvest their profits to improve the sewage network and fix leaks. And also Ofwat the water regulator to be abolished and replaced with an independent regulator with real powers to stop sewage discharges and issuing unlimited fines. So we are doing things nationally. Our MP Richard Ford managed to table a successful amendment, and that was to the UK Infrastructure Bank Bill. And the change means that the UK Infrastructure Bank can no longer fund water companies if they plan for unless they produce a costed and time plan for ending sewage discharge. So that's a real example of something that's been done. And I think on a local level, Worcester Liberal Democrats and our group have been looking at this, and similar to other people have mentioned. And we've talked about let me get the phrase, right, the combined sewage outlets, and obviously there are areas across the city, including Claines and St Peter's, and our local parish councillor, John Renshaw, as well. He's been looking at Duckbrook, and I have, as a county councillor, I've been in touch with Highways, and they've kindly written to Severn Trent for me as a starting point, which we're going to follow up. But yeah, I fully support this motion, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad of the order of the people you picked today, because I'm delighted to follow the last speaker, where the Lib Dems clearly have sought to make huge political capital out of something, a story of considerable disinformation and distortion. They would have you believe that this problem started in 2010, that this didn't happen. In fact, the truth of this is that it didn't even happen, it didn't start in 1910. The issue here started in the 1800s, when a joint sewage and drainage system was created in this country, which takes away waste from people's homes, and it includes all storm overage as well. The system has existed since at least the 1850s and has always included the process where water treatment plants cannot cope with the volume that the discharge has been permitted. The alternative, let me say, is that the waste flows back up the system and into people's homes. And that would be totally unacceptable. We all know that. The House of Lords recently did a study on this issue, and it was a cross-party committee looked into these issues and came up with a very good report about what would be necessary to eliminate storm drainage. Their estimate is that it would cost approximately £250 billion to replace and separate out the sewage system we have from people's homes and the storm overage that runs off people's fields and gardens and the rest of it that we have. These issues have been exacerbated by overdevelopment, clearly, and by water, where what was the natural system of holding back stormwater has been eroded over decades as more and more homes. A city like ours has been expanded and expanded and expanded. The land which would have held the water once upon a time is now concreted over and tarmacked over, and the water has to go somewhere. So, those are the facts. This is, at heart, this is an ideological battle. I'm glad the previous speaker spoke about the profits of the English water companies. I was going to admit that they're about 3 billion, but 2.5 billion I'll take. So on the basis of profits alone, it would take 100 years of the profits to replace the storm overage system that we have. Not to mention a huge disruption that would be in every single road, from every single home, as a process of delineating the sewage system from that of the storm runoff would be necessary. This is a really important issue. Rivers we do need action on this. But the idea that it was either created in some nasty conspiracy in 2010, or that it is simple and easy to fix and wouldn't cost a huge amount of money, which it would, and probably needs to be costed. But the idea that there's some quick fixes and that privatisation was the cause of it is frankly for the birds. So please, action here is necessary, but please do not go away with the dreams that this was created in the last few years, and that there's a quick way of sorting it out.
Thank you for the history lesson. It's very informative. I believe there are statistics about how long a particular government has been in power since the 1850s. I've got Councillor Mitchell next.
That's because the people tend to be quite clever. Councillors, the intent of this motion, much as two of my colleagues have talked about previously, is well-meaning. Unfortunately, the motion is more interested in political finger-wagging at the government rather than recognising the strides that have been made on the route to the ultimate goal of cleaner, clearer rivers. The motion refers to a toothless DEFRA calls through cuts. Unfortunately, the evidence doesn't support this statement. Water companies have handed out a record amount of fines. Water companies were handed a record amount of fines for pollution incidents last year as part of an ongoing action of holding back rule breakers and holding them to account. Since 2015, the Environmental Agency, who actually fined them, not DEFRA, has concluded 56 prosecutions against water sewage companies, securing £141 million. Your inaccuracies detract from the message. The government have also ensured that this money raised by fines is ring-fenced for investment into water quality as part of the ongoing plans to address water pollution. Previously, money from fines went back to Treasury. So it's the Conservative government who have made this change. This action has been fully supported by our MP, Robin Walker, so I'm sure he'll be interested in receiving the letter. The motion implies that the government are not taking action to prevent water pollution. Again, the evidence does not support this assertion. Earlier this year, the government published its Storm Overflows Discharge Reduction Plan, not easy to say, which brought its strict targets on sewage pollution and will require water companies to deliver the largest infrastructure programme in their history to tackle storm sewage discharges at the cost of 56 billion in capital investment over the next 25 years. If that's doing nothing, well, I'm surprised. The motion also tells us that the River Severn is one of the city's largest assets and biggest assets, and I couldn't agree more. It's a great place for leisure and activities. This is agreed, but it should also be remembered that it was the Conservative initiative that led the County Council, City Council and Susterns partnership. This partnership developed the Riverside Walk and built the cycle footbridge at Diggles. Let us not forget, both Labour and the Liberal Democrats voted against funding this project. It is the Conservatives who have always recognised the River Severn as a city asset, and it is the Conservatives who opened up the access to the river through creating the Riverside Walk. But I will be supporting the motion.
Councillor Petrovsky, you've got a right to reply.
Mention something about the event which happens here quite a lot, and that is flooding, and then our officers sorting out the mess along the River Severn, and other events were very necessary work. So this is not about the positive.
Thank you. I would like to see those in favour of the motion, please. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay, that looks unanimous as well. Thank you very much. So, next section, item 8, we're going to go to referral reports. The first one is on the capital strategy from the P&R committee, which I think is being proposed by Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm proposing this as Vice Chair of Policy and Resources Committee due to the unfortunate absence of the Chair. I appreciate that for some members, eyes kind of glaze over when we talk about money and investment strategies. I would commend this document to colleagues. It is very clearly expressed due to the efforts of officers who've done a great job on setting this out. And it is about prudent use of public money, sensible priorities, and those priorities within financially challenging times. The recommendation was unanimously agreed at Policy and Resources, and I commend it to all colleagues.
Okay, is that seconded? Councillor Mitchell?
I'm happy to second it, Mr. Mayor, and I don't believe I need to add anything further.
Okay, does everybody else agree with Councillor Mitchell? Looks like it. So those in favour of adopting that? Thank you. We move on to the referral report from planning. Councillor Stanley. Carry on.
I am happy to propose a report. With your forbearance, there are a couple of points that Councillor Mitchell wishes to make, though.
So is that seconded? Councillor Agar? Do you have anything to say? Okay, so I believe your colleague requests that you can speak, Councillor Mitchell. So go ahead.
Glad you agree I can, Mr. Mayor. So it's 2 points in there which cause me some concern, but I'm hoping with clarification my concerns will be removed. It's a paragraph 8.1 in which it says that no councillor is to talk to an applicant during a live application. Particularly if a councillor isn't on planning committee and we're not able to talk to residents about ongoing planning applications, I see that as just overly restrictive of our ability to represent our residents. Now, I understand as a former chair of planning that you have to be very careful if you are on the planning committee about disclosing any position. But if you're the way it's always worked in St Clement, where I sat on planning, Simon would potentially speak to the resident and I would keep out of it. Is that intended to be that draconian? Because if so, I'm wondering what most of us are going to be doing when a resident calls us about a planning application.
Just tell us where you are, please.
Paragraph 8.1.
Where 8.1 of what?
Page 20, paragraph 8.1 of the report on this. Thank you. If not, I'll find it myself, but I've made a point of reference on my notes.
Okay, so you're on page 40 then?
I'm just going to go and check, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for clarification. Officers might be able to advise me.
Okay.
And do you want me to go with my second point or wait for a response?
Let's do one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Mitchell. The amendments to 8.1 don't substantially change it, but I do take the point that read out of context, it suggests that councillors can't support ward level activity. So although the amendments don't make that worse, that I take your point that that isn't clear even in the current draft. So I wonder if we could, with your forbearance, agree that we should make a distinction in the drafting. I'm happy to do this with delegation to chair and vice chair, separating out the role of planning, the management of planning applications from ward councillor support and business. Because I take the point you're making, but rather than offer a form of words, if you'd be happy that that point is addressed with chair and vice chair.
Very happy that's taken away, and thank you for clarifying that. My second point is about 8.2.2, and it goes to pre-planning application advice, and it does sound like we want our cake and eat it. i.e. we'll take your money for pre-planning application advice, we'll give you advice, but we'll withhold the right to reverse our whatever advice we've given you come a planning application if someone senior to us thinks differently. And I understand pre-planning application advice can't be, it's not a planning application, but it just, again, doesn't read particularly well to me. And again, I'm very happy for people to go away and have another look. But if I'm a developer and I've come in and sought pre-planning application advice, put some money on the table, officer I've spoken to says, yeah, that looks good. We think we're good to go away, and then they come back and because someone senior to him or her says, oh, actually, I don't like that. Paint the windows green, not blue. And then they go, oh, well, that's come as a bit of surprise. So again, I'm happy for it to be taken away, but again, it just doesn't read particularly well to me.
Councillor, I mean, I would just make the point that this has been through planning committee and this kind of detailed discussion was held there, as I understand it. But I'm happy for Sean to answer the question.
But I thought we were allowed to debate stuff at council. Otherwise, I'm not just here to tick it off.
I understand that. I'm just saying.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Mitchell. On this occasion, I can't immediately think of a policy point that would address your concern, because obviously the pre-application stage would be necessarily caveated on the basis of the information that was shared with officers at that time would be less complete than when a formal application is made. So therefore advice could well change. I understand perhaps your point is around the confidence that applicants and their agents can have in the pre-application discussions phase. So if there was a point that you wished, again, with Chair and Vice Chair's authority, to look at around something around consistency or fairness, very happy to look at that. But necessarily, there could always be a difference between pre-application advice and application advice, because the picture would most definitely change as further information was provided.
I'm happy with that for clarification. Thank you. Just wanted to raise the point.
I mean, perhaps I've got this the wrong end of the stick as well, but I thought the amendments were those which were in colour and underlined. So the bit that you're talking about, Councillor, is not new, is it? Any other questions while we look at that, Councillor De Serra?
Thank you, Mayor. I did have a question about proposed changes on page 18 at 3.4. The final bullet point talks about things being agreed with the chair, and I did think that in committee we talked about that being the chair and vice chair.
Sean, what's the view on that? It's part of that report.
Thank you. Yes, I can confirm that any reference to the chair should be chair and vice chair, and I will go through and check that's the case. Every reference should be chair and vice chair.
With that caveat that we talked about a minute ago, can we accept the report? All those in favour? Very good, thank you. So we will then go to constitutional amendments, which of course will be a lot easier. So I've got referral report from audit on the constitution review of motions. Who's proposing that? Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, there's not much to add on this. We had a long discussion, which anybody who'd like to see it, it's on YouTube, so give it a go. We did cover quite a lot of areas in the motions. We looked at the range of issues, how many motions should be discussed and for how long. And in the end, we decided to take no action on that area. However, during a very orderly debate, we decided that it was important that both for motions and questions, the time frame to put those motions in should be extended a little to allow officers time to maybe comment and tweak, or with the approval of the proposer, so that the right thing goes before council. We've had situations in the past where a little bit of advice at the right time could have made a motion better, and we felt that that little bit of extra time would be beneficial. I commend these proposals to you.
Is that seconded? Councillor Petrosky, do you have anything to say? No? Yes? No, okay. Any questions, any issues, councillor Mitchell?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. It's a request to the Chair of Standards. Lots of great work going on there, and my question is that we seem to have accepted the LGA template, but then, oh, apologise, I'll sit down, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's all right, it's not the first time.
So we're on, sorry, I've made myself laugh on that one. Yeah, do. So, constitution review of motions. Everybody happy with that? Those in favour? Thank you very much. So now we're going to 8D, which is the annual report from Audit and Governance, referral report. Again, councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, happy to put this to the council. We have had issues with the audit report because Ernst & Young still haven't finished their work on 21-22 year, and we're just about to open 23-24 year. It's particularly galling because other councils who were with Grant Thornton have had their accounts approved. So as far as we're concerned, we've had a bit of a bad time of it. Our officers have worked really hard, working 2 times so that whatever we are meant to do has been done on time. Unfortunately, that hasn't then been carried forward by our auditors. We have also made sure that our governance reports are up to date as well. The good news is we're getting a new set of auditors through the national system, and it's a company that has an office in Worcester. Assets, which is on Bromyard Road, will be taking over the responsibility for the 2023-24 year, and our officers will immediately liaise with them so that everything will run smoothly ongoing. There is likely to be a bit of a crossover between the old auditors finishing 22-23 and the 23-24 actually happening. So there's likely to be 2 years at the same time, which will mean a great deal of extra work for our officers, but I think that they've agreed they can step forward and actually do a fantastic job for us. So bit of leeway needed there, but I think it's going to work out pretty well. So unfortunately, our normal chair wasn't available for the last meeting. So he's done a lot of the work and I'm just talking to it. But if there's anything you want to ask, please do.
Is that seconded? Thank you, councillor Mackay. Any questions or issues? Sorry, Ed.
Mr. Happy to second and reserve right.
Thank you. No questions. Okay, so can we accept that report? Those in favour? Yeah, thank you very much. Now, you'll be pleased to hear we're going to move to the Standards Committee. Councillor Olcott.
Chair, thank you. Yeah, I would like to propose referral of the report from Standards Committee on the 7th of March, that the Council agrees to adopt the revised Member Code of Conduct, which is detailed in Appendix 1, and that the Council approves a number of general dispensations under the Localism Act 2011, which are also under Appendix 1.
Is that proposed and seconded? Thank you, councillor Roberts. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. At the right moment, it's a plea to the Chair of Standards that maybe in the next 12 months we can have a review. The reason I ask is we seem to have adopted the LGA standard template, but then added lots of bits in, so we're different from other councils on a number of points. And I just wonder whether if we came to a standard where all the other district councils, I know not all of them have signed up to it yet, but then it might save confusion if people move between councils. It's a request. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may reply. Obviously, all councils have previously agreed that it is best adopt LGA best practices we would all want to do. And I understand the amendments are very, very minor between the councils, but we haven't quite been able to get agreement. But we will take that on board, and obviously, hopefully, eventually at county we can get that sort of overall, because it would be nice to have it equal across. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. On the basis of that, is everybody happy to agree that report? Very good. So that takes us on away from the reports. We're now on number 9, report of the Children and Young People Champion. Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have in front of you a copy of my reports for this year as Children and Young People's Champion. I'm not going to go through it verbatim, but I do want to take some opportunities to highlight some important things that I think have happened over the last year. Obviously, how I see the role is being an advocate for children and young people in this chamber, and to raise issues with the council, which I feel has an impact on children and young people. And one of the things I would say is that I think children and young people have been hit by a bit of a triple whammy over the last sort of 2 or 3 years. There already is, I think, a crisis of mental health and anxiety amongst young people, and we can attribute that to many things, I think, such as social media, etc. But there's certainly, that is a reality for many children and young people. Secondly, obviously, we've had COVID, and COVID has had a massive impact on the development of young people. Whilst COVID is over, I think we must not underestimate that the long tail of COVID and the impact it's had on the development of young people will be felt for many years to come. And we can see it in our schools, we can see it in our colleges, we can see it in the streets of our city as well, actually. So I think we must not underestimate the ongoing impact of COVID on young people. And also added to that, we've got the cost of living crisis, which has impacted on everyone, but has impacted in particular, I think, on young people, and again is having an impact on their development. However, I don't want us to think that everything is negative and everything is sort of doom and gloom. I think from my working with young people and speaking to the various agencies that work with them, that young people are resilient. And what is incredibly impressive is how this council, council officers, council employees, third sector organisations and charities are working incredibly hard with young people to ensure that they overcome some of the problems that I've highlighted. As I've said, I see my role as an advocate, and I feel I've used this chamber, I've used committees, I've used motions and questions to highlight some of the important issues facing young people. I've called for further funding for COVID recovery. I've called for more money to deal with child poverty. And I've asked for more money and more support to help deal with the cost of living crisis. I sit on a number of external organisations which allow me both to sort of advocate for young people in Worcester, but also to hear about good practice used both nationally, regionally and throughout the country. So I'm a representative on the Corporate Parenting Board. I sit on the Children and Young People Strategic Partnership Board. And I'm also a member of the Get Safe Strategic Group Meeting, which is about the protection of children and young people from exploitation. One of the highlights, I think, of the role is visiting various organisations, because obviously children and young people, I was asked at the start of the meeting, what does that include? Well, it includes everyone from naught, and even sometimes before that, actually, interestingly enough, right up to the age of 18. So visiting various organisations and providers really gives me an interesting insight into how children and young people are doing. So obviously visiting Christopher Whitehead's, and obviously we had Neil Morris come to Health and Wellbeing, and that was fascinating. Visiting St Joseph's Catholic Primary School and listening to them and their concerns, talking to the housing team at Worcester City Council about how they support children and young people. Where because of COVID, families have been forced into close proximity, which has exacerbated some of the tensions that, we all remember when we were teenagers. Some of us have teenagers ourselves, and clearly there is tension when people are forced together, and that sometimes leads to increased homelessness. I met with Night Stop, which is a charity based in Kidderminster, but we've worked with people in Worcester about their help. Obviously, there's big changes in my own sort of field, post-16 education, which I think is going to have a huge impact. I don't think it's been quite understood that, in the next 2 or 3 years, a lot of BTEC qualifications that many of us will know, and many of our children might have taken, are being defunded, and there's going to be a purely linear or purely binary choice between A-levels for academic students and T-levels for more vocational students. And I think we haven't really thought about the impact on that, because I think that's going to lead to a growth of NEETs, not in employment, education or training. Obviously, Worcester Community Trust continues to work with young people and supporting them with their mental health struggles. And I've also obviously worked with the council and been consulted by the council in various reports that have come before health and wellbeing, such as the Child Poverty Task and Finish Group recommendations, the Hereford and Worcestershire Integrated Care Partnership, and that's what I was referring to, you know, even in the stages of maternity, some of the early sort of indicators that might lead to issues later on in life are being tackled. And the Worcester District Collaborative Project, which is about, you know, providing mental health support and wellbeing support and resilience support for children aged 7 to 11. I've also been consulted on the allocation of the Household Support Fund, including, you know, providing free school meal vouchers for an extended period to certain groups, preschools and 16 to 18-year-olds, the Discretionary Welfare Assistance Fund to provide more funding to children who are in need. Obviously, the strategic play area development, which obviously many of us contributed towards. And I've also supported the work of the council's own youth intervention team, which is, you know, providing such things as one-to-one walk and talk mentorings, group sessions and reactive patrols. I meet council officers on a regular basis and are updated and discuss council initiatives and policies which regard young people and children. And obviously moving forward into the next year, we've got the Worcestershire County Council will be commissioning their Positive Youth Activity Fund during 2024, and that will be providing activities for young people aged 13 to 19, mainly delivered by Worcestershire or Worcester Community Trust. We've also had Health and Wellbeing literally last week, an update on the Household Support Fund and Child Poverty Fund and the Discretionary Welfare Assistance Scheme, which again is being helped to focused support for young people. We've got the Strategic Play Area consultation, which has recently closed, so it's going to be fascinating to see how we envisage play developing in the city of Worcester. And there are also there's going to be a review of the public space protection orders, because obviously young people, you know, they like skateboarding and they like cycling as well. So we would need to check how that's going to be impacted on. And obviously the successful accreditation of Purple Flag for Worcester City Centre. And obviously there'll be a focus on combating violence against women and girls. Okay, so that sums up the work done for the Children and Young People's Champion for the last year.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lamb. We will take some questions. Councillor Roberts.
If I may, please don't think this is patronising, but I'd like to say this is an excellent report which sets a benchmarks for other district councils and sets a benchmark for our champions in other areas. So congratulations, Matt. Thank you.
Anybody else got any comments? Questions? Okay. Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I actually would like to echo Councillor Roberts there. I think this is a first-class report, and Councillor Lamb should be proud of the work he's doing. Thank you very much.
Very good. Well, I'm sure we'd all agree with those sentiments. Thank you. We're now going to move on. Is there anything which the Joint Leader has to say?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And we'll move the motion for the. Are there any? There aren't any exempt items, are there? No. So I'm not going to. We're not going to bother with that. We're just going to finish the council meeting. Thank you all for your attendance and making my last meeting so pleasurable. Well, honestly, seriously.